Lindsay Richmond has come from RCAP Solution, and that is one of the emergency rental assistance programs that is out there that's on the resource sheet that we keep passing out to you. And we thought you might have some questions on how to sign up. We're also trying to reach out to people, and if anyone's having trouble, call down to the town hall, getting signed up or any of that sort of stuff. We're finding information. But we're going to start out. Lindsay's going to go over a real quick overview of the programs that she has available, and then she's going to take questions. And while she's doing that, we're going to pass out information for the, and it's RCAP Solutions. And it's one of the state programs. It's a regional program funded by the state to help people when they have trouble with rental needs and paying bills or making a transition to a new unit if that's what they end up doing. So this is Lindsay Richmond, and thanks everybody for coming in. And remember, ask your questions and we'll try and give you what information we can. Okay, thanks.
Consumer Education Manager over at RCAP. And I just want to tell you a little bit about the services that we can offer you guys to help transition and make this next chapter something very smooth. So in the Housing Consumer Education Center, you guys can call us and schedule an appointment, and we will sit with you and determine what you're looking for. We can help you do housing search, everything from just passing out resources to sitting down, scheduling appointments for you to go visit apartments. We'll go over what you can afford, what you're looking for, and then after that, we will help you apply for a RAFT program. The RAFT program will help smooth over any costs that you guys can't cover moving to a new location. I know rent is outrageous, and they're looking for first, last security. So we want to just be able to cushion anything that you guys may not be able to afford yourselves. There are some documents we'll ask for. We're going to ask for a proof of income. We're going to ask for, we want to know who's living in your house. And then we'll determine how much assistance that you will qualify for. Anyone have any questions so far?
No. Right out the bat. Is there an qualification amount where you have to be under to qualify for that assistance?
Yes, there are, but with qualifying crises, so we'll ask for any documentation that you have to support your crises, and usually there are programs under 80% AMI based on whatever your household size is. There are other programs that are under 120, so we will sit with you and work with you and figure out what you qualify for, and personally how much dollar amounts we'll go for. Okay?
Hi, Lindsay. Hello, everybody. I'm a community organizer with City Life, and I came on Sunday to see what's going on, and I knocked on doors and heard everything that folks were saying. I appreciate you, Lindsay, but I wouldn't start that way. I want to know what the community wants to do first. I don't think we should offer them an alternative to move if they're already home, and especially when there's nothing out there right now. We're still going through COVID. Folks are still dying from that. So I think it's absurd that we're asking them to consider moving when those folks who just purchased those complexes, never approached them to negotiate anything, just giving them notices to quit. So we cannot let this happen if we're gonna make things right, because this could be only the tip of the iceberg. So I wanted to say that, and if the folks want to fight, you need to ask them what they want to do.
I am not a lawyer, and I cannot offer you any legal advice, but I would be happy to refer you to the appropriate services if that is the path that you so choose. We will absolutely be there for any type of referral that we can provide you.
Thank you.
And the one other program I just wanted to touch on is if you do find yourself in a situation where you haven't quite found housing yet and you're still looking, there is another program. It's called Home Base or Front Door Home Base. We can use Front Door Home Base to avoid you going into a family shelter. To qualify for this, you have to have children under 21. So we just want to be here for the just in cases and to support you through whatever you need. But again, I'm not a lawyer and I can't offer you any legal advice, but I would be happy to make the appropriate referrals to get you the answers you'd like.
Is that okay if I jump in again? I'm sorry, but I was under the impression that the folks here, they were facing eviction. Do you know what eviction means? That goes on your record. Number one. And again, you're talking about shelter. I don't think anybody here would want to go to a shelter, especially if you have a family. Yeah. So I feel the starting point should be to ask them what do they want from you, and if you can help them, if there can be some kind of negotiation.
Yeah.
So what this was tonight, and the residents here have the right to do whatever they want. They can organize, they can do whatever they want. We set up an evening to give them information, because everyone needs information to make their own personal choice. And that's what we're here for, is to give people information. And if you want to talk to people, I have no problem with it. I want people to do what they feel is right, but they need information to make their own choices. And that's what we're trying to do. We have a number of people here to talk to people and give them information. And if anyone has any questions, and if you don't have your question right now for Lindsay, you can come in my office, you can call our tab. That's fine. You don't have to have the information tonight. But we do need to let people talk about their different options. And if you want to have a community meeting to help people organize, that's okay too. But this is an information meeting.
We do have legal aid showing up in about 10 minutes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
they're on about 10 minutes out, so.
Thank you.
So does anyone have any more questions?
I have one for how our cap actually works. Do y'all just help actually find us a place to move into, but within the district we want to stay here, or you guys just give us money to move wherever? Do you guys help us negotiate with the landlords to make the rent more feasible? Because how does it,
So we service all of Worcester County, but we do have sister agencies all over the state that we will refer you to. You can work with us, and you may determine that you want to move to Framingham, which is SMOC's territory. So we will set you up with the appropriate people over at SMOC to get you the money. And we can also work with you to find something that's in your budget. And you can sit one-on-one with the counselor and determine what you want, what you need, what your budget's going to be, what your territory is looking at, and we will be there for as long as you need us.
okay, thank you.
Okay?
Hi, Lindsay. My question is, typically, how long does the paperwork take? So when someone fills it out, is it gonna take a week or two, or some of the programs I know are very good, but take a long time?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So the main determining factor for that is that we need to make sure that everyone's submitting complete applications. If you're missing copies of your IDs, if you're missing income verifications, if you're missing things, that's gonna make it take 10 times longer. Complete packets ensure our turnaround is anywhere from 4 to 6 weeks right now, but like I said, any complete applications that are turned in, we can absolutely try to expedite those.
And one other question, my understanding is there's a landlord certification to this, like they have to say, yeah, they live here and this is what they owe, or.
Oh, okay.
So, just not knowing the other party, what they might be
Yes,
doing or not doing.
So generally how it works is you submit an application, we give you what we call a landlord packet. It has things like a W-9 so we know who to send money to. We ask for a proof of ownership just so we know that you really do own the place that you say you owe. Once the landlord fills that out, either you give it back to us, we get it back directly from them. That's the landlord certification. We just want to make sure that we're paying who we think we're paying and that they do indeed own what they say they own.
Right, so the
Are you
point
from
of this
legal?
is just to make sure
Are you
that
from legal?
I'm hearing a lot
Are
of
you
bad
from
things
legal?
about the landlord, so I just want to make sure.
Oh, I
Like, when you
apologize.
do
I
it, they're
apologize.
not,
I'm sorry.
Following along or willing to help.
So if we get any pushback from the landlord, there's actually a new program out where we can pay the tenants directly with an agreement stating that you understand that you are to use this money only to pay your landlord.
I was gonna say there's a way When you give somebody automatically the money rather than to the landlord, doesn't that count as income and doesn't it like have an effect on benefits?
No, it does not count as income. Because it goes to them with the understanding that it's going directly to their landlord and that we would pay the landlord if we could.
Yeah.
So it would be just like receiving regular RAF where we do pay the landlord directly, it's the same thing. We just have you sign an agreement stating that you understand that if you don't pay your landlord within a specific amount of time, that you will return those funds back to us.
Right.
Or if it were for something such as moving costs, like first, last, security, and something falls through and you decide not to move in, what have you, that if you will return the money and then get new money when you find a new unit.
Oh, thank you.
Okay?
So, let's say Devenscrest is redeveloped, you know, and is redeveloped and there's higher rent. Would the present residents be entitled to use the subsidies there? And would it require the owner agreeing to enter into a lease with them?
Do you mean like a Section 8 voucher?
Yes, the Section 8
So there is an
voucher.
application process for that too, and a counselor would be happy to sit down with you one-on-one to discuss the different voucher programs that are available.
Well, but these are, the project-based vouchers are assigned through the state, is that not correct?
Yes.
Right, and it would be your agency that would be administering it.
So,
But it would be up to the state to assign Section 8 project-based vouchers to a future redevelopment or an existing Devenscrest, is that not correct?
To be perfectly honest with you, I'm not sure how the funding comes through. The Section 8 and the HCV voucher program is a program separate from mine, but I would be happy to put you in contact with the managers of that program. We have a couple directors over at RCAP, and I would be happy to put you in contact.
I
with
do
them for
think
your
it
very
is
specific
important that
questions.
residents understand that what your agency is offering is not only giving them options to relocate, but that there is the potential of remaining where they are or coming back to that and getting subsidies to be able to afford.
So if that's the case, and you want to come back, we can absolutely still help you with moving costs, first, last, security, and we can see what kind of ongoing support that you would qualify for. It's really a case-by-case basis.
Okay, thank you.
Okay?
What if somebody decides to buy a condo or a house?
So we actually do have first-time home buyers programs,
Okay.
workshops, and I can sit with you and help you look through down payment assistance. There are a lot of programs for first-time buyers that require low down payments, and then depending on where you want to move, there are different pots of money that are available to help you put those down payments in. But those business cards that are on your table, the ones that say the Housing Consumer Education Center, if you call that number, you answer on the other end, and we can kind of walk you through the first-time home buyer process and get you started with our education. That way we can work with you one-on-one, we'll go over finances, savings, spending habits, things like that, and then recommend anybody to help you get a mortgage, kind of give you your different options as far as mortgages go.
Now, would RAF follow under that for the cost of moving?
It does not.
Okay.
Two different programs.
Okay.
RAP is a crisis-based program, so there are qualifying crisis fees, and having to move is
Still a crisis. Cheaper to have a mortgage right now than to
really
rent.
I've been, I work one-on-one with our first-time home buyers clients, and I'm reviewing their loan estimates and their closing disclosures. It is a cheaper option for some people that are in the right situation.
Right.
Situation, but way lower now.
I mean, it's worth talking to a counselor about. We can absolutely sit with you and determine your options. And if you're not ready right now, there's who's to say you're not going to be ready with 6 months of counseling. We work on some problem areas. Maybe we increase your credit score, we increase your savings. We help you get to that place where you can be a homeowner.
Thank you.
No problem.
Lindsay, when you talk about the application has to be filled out, it's better to get it completed, filled out right at the beginning. Are our counselors available to help them and, fill out that
Absolutely.
information? Would they be willing to come back out here, or do they have to go to an office?
I can absolutely talk to our department and figure something out and I can contact you.
Excellent, thank you.
says Worcester only.
Worcester County.
We're in Middlesex here, so who would handle the Middlesex area?
So we will put that off and we will be able to, refer you to Smockville. You can complete your application with you, we can still work with you.
Okay.
And then what'll happen is when it comes time for processing of the application, we'll just send it to them for processing, but we'll still work with you. We can still do housing search, we can still do first-time home buyers, we can do all of our other options. It's just that when it comes to processing the application and who the money comes out of, that would be another huge risk. Anybody else have any questions?
I have a question.
Okay.
This is for people here. If they were able to send somebody out, would you want to meet with them here? Would that make it easier, or would you want some other place to meet? Would they go to homes, or would they want to come to a spot like this?
It would definitely be better to have a community space. But we can also do them, over the phone and walk them through online. There is an online application. You can go to our website. It asks us all the same questions, the same applications, the same process all the way through. So if it is easier, you are welcome to apply online as well.
So, I mean, is anybody in this room potentially interested in meeting with somebody here?
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
If the demand's there, we'll be here.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Thanks for having me, everybody.
Thank you.
I'm not gonna go all the way up front. We're still waiting to decide, but why don't we talk and have our representatives get up for a moment?
Sure.
And they could each introduce themselves and talk to you a little bit on, and I mean, they
Well,
have to
good
share.
evening, everyone. I am your state representative, Dan Sena, and I was here last week or 2 weeks ago when we had that first meeting, and I was so sad that there's people with lots of money who really are not putting working class or families as their priority. It's really just money here in business. So I'm here to support you. I'm here to find ways that we can delay this eviction notice as much as possible, or even fight it. I want to hear what you guys have to say, and I want to know what the majority of you would like to do. I know the town of Ahearn is not, at least my understanding, is not meeting the 10% that we need for affordable housing. And I know the state here, the delegation, we're really fighting for more funds when it comes to affordability, housing, and we live in a housing crisis. And I think the state needs to act. We need to do more. When I had my budget meeting with Mike Woods, I had asked him to make sure we're fully funding these kinds of programs that RCAP is sent us for everybody. And every time I get a phone call of someone that is about to become homeless, and I have to tell them, oh, there's a Section 8 voucher you can apply, or there's this, but you have to wait 5, 6, 7 years. That's unacceptable. Unacceptable. So I'm here to support you. Call my office, 617-722-2014. I brought my aide, Brady Sullivan is here with us tonight. We also have some interns to really try to get as much information as we can. And I know Senator.
Yeah.
So 617-722-2014. So call that number. You can leave a brief voicemail. We'll get back to you. If you want to email me, my information is on the website, at the State House website, but it's DANILLO, that's my email, DANILLO.SENA@mahouse.gov. And quite frankly, I think what we need to do here at the delegation, I think we need to ask for a meeting with the owners, with the new owners, and find out what they really want.
That's good.
And I think that's about time that we actually ask for that meeting. We can advocate for you to delay this and find out really what their purpose is. I think there should be a law in the books that prevent them from asking 122 families to meet. I think we should have some kind of limit on how many units you can actually vacate within a month, even if you want all those units. With that, I thank you, and I know a lot said that I also and Representative Harrington say a few words as well, so thank you.
Awesome job.
So good evening, everyone. State Senator J.D. Eldridge. Really good to see you about 2 weeks after we first met, and great to be here with Representative Sena and Representative Harrington. I do also want to recognize Jocelyn DeLeon Estrada with Congresswoman's Trahan's office. So thank you so much, Jocelyn, for being here. And I want to thank RCAP for being here as well. And I really share Representative Sena's outrage over it. And I will say, from the conversations I've had with AIR, property managers, with even New Hampshire newspaper reporters, I do think that the model of this property owner is a pretty common one to basically target distressed properties, clear people out, and then rehabilitate properties, but raise them so much that people that live there can no longer afford it. So that is my opinion about the property developer. There's a lot of stories in New Hampshire about the property owner's reputation. So I do just want to express my concern about what could happen. Now, RCAP is offering, an option as far as if people here have the luck of finding a new place to live. I think we all know how difficult that is, and hopefully you remember my comments when we were last year together that, I stand with you. I believe we can delay this eviction. In my conversations with legal aid, and there will be a legal aid attorney from Northeast Legal Aid that represents this area, it is sort of legal aid's general opinion that evictions like this can be delayed, 6 to 12 months. So, that's sort of my view. I think what's so tough for everybody here is that it's so difficult to figure out how to make a decision. But the gentleman from City Life, I'm sorry, your first name, sir?
Radell.
Radell?
Yes.
Okay, Radell. And Radell is here. Matt Thrall, who's also a community organizer, and Bob Van Meter, is that I know that they have been out to the neighborhood to organize tenants. And so the idea is, if tenants can remain united, you're going to be stronger to fight these evictions. So that is my opinion as your state senator, to continue to fight this. But it is important to know about the resources at RCAP. But my view is that this should be really fought. So, Representative Sena talked about the construction of affordable housing, and Alicia Hersey here from the town of Ayer. There are efforts to build more affordable housing in Ayer, but let's be frank, it's not going to be built for 1, 2, or 3 years. There's waiting lists for public housing authorities across the state. So I just want to be realistic, is that, I don't see that as an immediate option. That's something that we have to do better as policymakers and communities. In full disclosure, and I know him to be someone who's wants to help, but I do want to note that an attorney representing the property owner is here, Mr. Rob Anctil. So I just wanted to make sure people knew that an attorney representing the owner is here as part of this conversation, and perhaps later he can answer questions. But I just want to make sure people knew that someone representing the owner, the new owner, is here. So those are my initial thoughts. I do have to, I'll be here later, but I do have to leave for a Zoom meeting, but I just want to make sure to express the same message I said about a week and a half ago, is that I personally think we should continue to fight the evictions. I think that, with the help of legal aid, those evictions can be significantly delayed, because the reality is, if we're trying to find alternative housing, we all know that's going to take a while. Right. So, that is my view, and I'll do everything in my power to stand with you and to fight the property owners' efforts. So I just want to let you know that, and want to ask Mr. Harrington to share some words. Thank you so much.
Thank you, and I echo the sentiments of both my colleagues that we're going to do as much as we can to help you. I do want to say that Representative Sena is your your official representative for this half of Air. I don't know if everybody knows, but they split Air in half about 10 years ago. And I've got the downtown part and the other side. But he and I kind of, if it's downtown, he's there, here, I'm here. We're kind of in for a penny, in for a pound. We can take it. So anyway, I just wanted to let you know that I echo the sentiments of what has already been said, and I'm not going to regurgitate that again to you. However, I do want to address a couple of things. One of them is the issue of the financing if you did in fact want to buy a home. And you're right, it's cheaper now probably to own than it is to rent. And there are actually some programs to help you get into these purchases, but also there are special loans that have actually been available in the state for many years under the Mass Housing Finance Authority. So that's something that I would recommend anyone who thinks, you know, they may have an income or whatever that could put them in a position that they could qualify to look at that. And generally these are loans that are sort of designed for people who don't really have money to put down. And that's kind of the big thing. They work with you to try to help you get the best deal, even if you don't have, you know, a big deposit to put toward a home, obviously. The second thing is, and I'm not sure that you realize this, and oftentimes this part of Middlesex gets looped into Worcester. So for different reasons and different courts and different things, we are out of Worcester County, even though we are in Middlesex. So I do believe RCAP Worcester does have jurisdiction in this region. Yeah. So I just wanted to make sure people weren't looking for a different place to go. It really is Worcester for this area. You know, heck, everyone thinks we're in Worcester County anyway, so they just must have made that mistake when they put it together. The other thing that I wanted to talk about is obviously what has happened here has had such a ripple effect through the communities and the surrounding communities. And I think it's brought to light, as Senator Eldridge said, the severe shortage in housing. And that's really, I mean, there's a severe shortage of housing, there's a severe shortage of new cars, there's a severe shortage of a lot of things. But the housing is obviously the most desperate situation we have right now in Massachusetts and in other states. And to that end, so that we can start to work towards getting better solutions on that, it's not going to be an immediate fix certainly for that. We have been in communication with a builder developer who years ago had proposed doing over Vicksburg Square in the Devon site, and a big portion of that would be affordable housing. And he's come back to the table, and he'd like to talk to people, and you know, he said that they may be able to put in up to 200 units. So that's something that isn't an immediate, but we're looking at everything we can. We're looking around. The Section 8 vouchers, I hate to say, they do come from the state, but there is, I want to say, an 8-year wait list about, yeah. Unfortunately, and this is what we run into every single day with constituents. There is not enough housing for affordable housing. There is not enough disabled housing. There is not enough senior housing. There is not enough housing in any part of society, basically. So there are people that fall through the cracks, and to say to them, well, I can put you on a list for 10 years from now isn't really that helpful. So I think my feeling is that I know I have also spoken with Attorney Anctil and another attorney with their company, but I made it very clear that our goal is going to be to stall things, to give time, and there was an indication that they will agree to give time. So we want to work with that, but we also want to find ways that you can either finance getting into these apartments after the fact, some sort of a either a negotiated way or something through the state. We can at least get you through a period of time, but we can't, because the RAP money won't go forever and ever. So there's money to get you started. It's just that there's no place that we can completely say right now we can relocate. So the work is going to be to stall the process, to work with them to try to find a way to keep you there for as long as we can keep you there till you can find another place. So that's
going to housing court. And then some information came to us that we were wondering about, and that was that if you got housing court on your record, you may have a harder time than getting another landlord.
Yes.
Is that true?
Yes.
Is that really a wise thing to recommend if that's the case?
Stalling, that's why I say any kind of stalling would be, we should be working, negotiating with them to do a stall that isn't going to affect everybody's ability to rent further. Anytime you have a foreclosure or an eviction on your credit report, you're going to have in your record, it could, I would be lying if I said it wouldn't affect it at all. It could very well affect it.
How about if we work to change the laws so that doesn't, correct, we need to change the laws.
If I could just add to that, because this came up at the last meeting, is that, you know, if there were ultimately an eviction order from a judge, that is a negative, but that's at the end. Remember, only a judge can evict you. So this is where, right now, many of you receive notices to quit. That's not a court complaint, so you'll receive. I mean, putting aside some sort of negotiation, you'll get a complaint, and that is an eviction, and that's when you apply a defense. So I guess what I'm saying is, in my opinion, I don't think that should be a concern, and I think that you should continue to fight these evictions. So, just because I have to go, I know, is legal aid here yet, or?
I'm right here.
Okay. Hi.
Hi.
There's a lot of
Thank you. And I'm sorry, your name?
Sean.
Sean.
Do you want me to come up? I can answer a question.
Yes.
Thank you.
Sean speaks. Is there any questions for, I'll be back in a little bit, but are there any questions for legislators you have? And I'm sorry we're giving you so much information, but are there any questions you have for us?
I had a question. Last night at the affordable housing meeting, Cindy, is Janet still here? Yeah. So I had a question on Fort Devens. You said that there was some reasons why that couldn't become available, right?
Well, I mean, again, as Representative Harrington said, they are looking back at Pittsburgh Square, to go ahead and try to get it renovated. Mass Development has been, talking about it, but there's also been several years of turnover there. So with that, I know that that's something that they are looking at.
And it's something you have to coordinate with the neighboring towns, right?
Right, the three super town meetings.
Right.
And Air voted yes, and the other two towns voted no.
12 years ago.
So what I was saying is, if he could possibly, if Senator Eldridge could possibly help with negotiating that conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just really want to be very frank, because, in Cindy referenced it, as you're talking about, if there was to be, if Vicksburg's going to be developed, you have to get the three towns in super town meeting to vote.
Right.
Get mass development to support it, we need all the subsidies, we're talking 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
So it's not, I personally don't think that's a realistic option for many.
The Devenscrest people.
Yeah, and that's, again, that's why my focus is on fighting the problem. Any questions for legislators? But I would like Sean to come on. Yes, Denise?
Is there anything on, at the State House regarding any of what we're talking about housing, that there are any housing bills or House bills or Senate bills to change anything of, the rent increases and investors buying off property with cash, and that contributes to lack of housing too. So I was just wondering if there are any bills out there.
Can you repeat the question so the camera?
She's asking if there are any housing bills, and actually, there is a housing committee that hears all of the bills that are relative to housing issues. I don't know what the number of bills are this year that are in the housing committee, but yeah, there's lots of them. If you went on the MAlegislature.gov, and when you search bills, it gives you an option to search bills and laws, put housing, and everything will come up. That's in the bills this year, this session.
Is there anything about to pass though? No.
Well, there are bills. Matt, do you want to talk about it so far?
Yes. So there is a bill, and Senator Eldridge is gratefully a co-sponsor along with.
Go stand on the mic.
Do you want to come up here, Matt?
Hang on.
Shall I be at the mic?
Yeah.
There is a bill called the Tenant Opportunity to Purchase Act. And under this bill, which actually passed in the last session of the legislature, but was unfortunately vetoed by the governor. So we have about 50 organizations, local, regional, statewide, and national organizations that have endorsed this. We've got about 50 members of the legislature who have signed on to the bill. What the bill would do, it is what's called a local option bill. It would allow municipalities to adopt an ordinance that requires any landlord of a multifamily property of more than 3 units to notify tenants of that property when the landlord is putting the property on the market, and the tenants would have 30 days to make a first offer to purchase the property, which the landlord would not necessarily have to accept. But when the landlord gets a bona fide third-party offer for the property, the tenants would have 45 days to match that offer and basically buy the property from the seller at the same price that the seller has been offered. And so we're working very, very hard to get this enacted, and I should tell you that Devenscrest at Ahearn is the poster child for TOPA this year. It's absolutely the poster child. What has happened here is exactly what a TOPA in place would have prevented.
Thank you so much, Matt. Thank you for being here. Yep. Appreciate it. Unless there's any more questions, I'll be back a little later. I'm actually going to be just next door at a virtual meeting, virtual forum, so I'll be back. So, Sean? Sean, thank you so much for coming.
Yeah, of course. Hey everyone, can everyone hear me? Yeah. I don't even know what. Okay, so I'm from Northeast Legal Aid. My name is Sean. Thank you all for your patience. There's, as everyone knows, after the COVID crisis, there's a lot of need. With that being said, the types of cases that we're all facing are not unique in the sense of what I see and deal with every day, what my colleagues at Legal Aid deal with every day. What that means is we're here, we're available. We have certain eligibility restrictions on people who are going to qualify for, a fuller representation in terms of getting free legal services, but that's what we offer. And so we can both kind of handle this on an individual level. If people want to contact my office, if they're interested, again, it's Northeast Legal Aid, you can look it up online. I can give you an intake phone number if people want to kind of find out more information about their eligibility for free legal services. We can do that person to person, that sort of private representation. But because I'm here, addressing everyone here, I'm happy to take any questions, but I will start by saying that I can't give you, if you're saying, hey, in my particular case, this is what's going on, what can I do? I can't give you legal advice like that. You'd have to go through the intake procedure, be eligible for services, and then once you get assigned an advocate, if you're eligible with my office, then we can talk out all those details. We'll get your counterclaims going. If you have any, if you file an answer to this case, if it goes to your court. Again, you're all kind of far away from that process. So I'm here to kind of answer any general questions that you all have, and I hope I can kind of give the community a sense for what your legal rights are, kind of more broadly. Yeah, go ahead.
If you have repair issues in your home, would that keep you in your home longer? Will you be able to legally, would that allow you to be able to stay in your home for a longer period of time while they're making repairs on that home? So you have,
sorry, what was your question?
if you have repairs, if you need repairs on your house, that there's issues with your house, it's not safe. With your apartment, would that allow you to stay in your house long, or your home or apartment longer?
So what I can say is that, sure, yeah, of course.
Yeah,
so
yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
I can give you some
If there are safety concerns within your apartment, would that allow you or provide you more time to stay in your apartment longer when they're making repairs or in litigation?
Sure, yeah, so let me talk a little bit generally. I think everyone here, I don't know who lives in the community, but everyone here who has received one of those notices to quit, the type of notice to quit that you all received, as I understand it, again, I can't give you specific advice, I have to look at your specific notice to quit. But if you received a notice to quit that's called a no cause notice, it just says your tenancy is terminated, not for non-payment, not for cause, just for no cause, as I believe the majority of the community did. Again, I have to look at the specific notices. But in that particular type of case in Massachusetts, people are entitled to a broad range of defenses, of which one of those defenses is potentially bad conditions in the property. I have to look at, I know, the specifics of the case, Attorney said that 100 more times. But yes, that is a potential defense that's available to people facing no consequence.
What about disability? If you're disabled or legally disabled?
Yes, you're under fair housing law, persons with disabilities have a broad range of defenses as well. Absolutely. Not only do they have defenses to certain types of evictions or entitled to certain accommodations, but in the no cause eviction context, they're entitled to up to 12 months of a stay, even once the case goes the whole way to judgment and the landlord gets possession. Again, that's a discretionary stay, it's in the judge's hands, but yes, people with disabilities have a lot of rights under fair housing law. Yeah, go on.
How long can you delay a eviction notice for? How many months or years are you able? I know it's a broad question, but is there a certain time if you're fighting, sure not to court, okay, this is what my apartment is, would you say there's an average time?
So I'll repeat the question. How long can you delay an eviction notice for before it goes to court? Is that?
Well, no, even sure not
Delay
to
the
court,
process.
going to court, delaying the process in terms of proving that the conditions in my apartment was not up to standards, for example. Do you have, because I've heard there's cases that there's like someone was fighting an eviction for 11 years. And I know there's a possibility that we can delay for years, but curious to know what your experiences are with that.
Yeah. So the question is, how long could an eviction case kind of last for, right? How long could it be delayed for? It depends on the particular case, but I've seen cases, with the COVID crisis, I had one case that was a no cause, it's lasted like 3 or 4 years, but that was probably because of the COVID crisis disrupting, the flow of the court process, the state moratorium and those kind of courts. But that said, every tenant in Massachusetts, when they're brought into court and the summary process based, sorry, you guys for me, is entitled to claim a jury. And we encourage most tenants to strongly consider when they're brought into court to assert that jury trial right. And that can, buy them more time to develop their defense, and also you get to present your case in front of a jury of your peers, which a lot of people prefer that right. So that's often a mechanism that people use to gain themselves more time if they so choose. And then again, if there are counterclaims at issue in the case, those can take time to develop. All tenants have a right to demand discovery, which is essentially requesting documentation from your landlord to back up or to prove everything that you're asserting against them and they're asserting against you. That can take time. Do you have claims, especially if you have legal representation, go through all the discovery and say, hey, you didn't answer this question, you didn't answer that question. So yeah, the litigation process can take time, and for persons who are paying for it, it can be really costly. So there's a huge benefit that's offered to people who qualify for free legal services, because you can imagine there's a huge benefit to having a free lawyer when the other side's paying for it. Sometimes it can tip the scales when the whole community comes together, is asking for free legal services, getting that legal representation, asserting all those rights that I'm pointing out. If it does apply in her case, it puts a lot of pressure on a landlord who's trying to fit the whole community. Yeah, right there.
Please tell me that I know court's down the road, but please tell me it's not in Lawrence.
The court that you all would be going to, if it's in the housing court, would be in Lowell.
Oh, good.
It's not in Lawrence. So the Northeast Housing Court main office is in Lawrence, but you all would probably be in a Lowell session. Again, they haven't even filed a case yet, but that's most likely where it would be. Yeah, right there.
Yeah, could you clarify what the rules are. If the tenants are organized and there are people within the organization that are eligible, can legal aid represent the whole organization?
It's a great question. I've never represented, sorry, okay, yeah, I'm sorry, I'll repeat the question. So the question is, can legal aid represent a whole tenants organization?
Like a class action.
Right.
Organized. So I've never done it before.
Do it.
I think there's a lot of support for a tenants union. I think we potentially could be able to involve pro bono counsel with a lot more resources at a large firm. I mean, would be hopefully how we could get a tenants union kind of connected with someone, because that's a big case, right? And I think often if tenants organize, it might not be a class action in the sense of litigation, but it might just be dragging the landlord to the negotiating table, right? Trying to negotiate a community-wide solution for kind of like, how are we gonna deal with this in future stuff, like what's the next move? And certainly, like, I would love to be involved in that process. Yeah, I don't think we've,
Yeah, I heard that too.
we ever represented a tenants organization, but yeah, that's certainly at the bargaining table.
Time to research court cases.
Yeah, yeah. Certainly at the bargaining table, there will be legal assistance available with community organizers available. Yeah. Yeah, right back there.
This was asked online, and it's very similar to something that was asked earlier, but this is more specific. It was asked whether it would be a good idea or not to call the Board of Health on some of the problems in some of the apartments and some of the complexes. Whether that would be a good thing or whether that would muddy the waters.
Sure, so the question is it a good idea to call the Board of Health or to kind of report on some of the bad conditions, or is that strategically a bad idea? So it's a delicate question, and everyone needs to make it for themselves. I should give general advice that it's much easier to prove a claim for bad conditions when you've gotten either a report from a public agency, such as the Board of Health, generated by calling an inspector to your home, or by just reporting the conditions in writing in some way to your landlord. Because you can imagine if you're going to go into a court process and you're going to kind of hang your hat on this claim of bad conditions to kind of win that no-cause eviction, if you or someone you know is going to do that, then certainly having some record of it, whether it's a Board of Health, whether it's in writing, that in a general sense is important. It's up to every single person to evaluate kind of and to maybe speak with legal counsel about the risks. In that, I often don't see many risks. I encourage a lot of tenants that they have a substantial bad condition. The Board of Health is there, but you certainly don't want to be put in a position where either your unit is so bad that it's condemned, but I don't know if anyone's living in a unit that bad, but if you are, forgive me for saying that. And then second of all, that the Board of Health shows up and for some reason says like, there's nothing wrong, because certainly that cuts against the argument. So I think speaking with someone who's kind of been involved in this would help a person determine in their particular case whether to call. But I would say if there are clear bad conditions and they've existed for a while, creating a record is like the most important thing to do with any landlord.
So it's to my understanding that Brady Sullivan is issuing these notices to quit to renovate these apartments to get higher rents and all that. And in a statement that I had read online from them or heard through one of these meetings, is that they can't safely renovate these places with the people in it. Wouldn't that Board of Health claim go against the tenant at that point, because that's what they're intending to do?
So the question was, if some of these remediations, it's hard to paraphrase, but if some of these remediations that need to happen and renovations that need to happen in the unit require the tenant vacating in order to safely be done, and if somehow a report of that or a Board of Health report uncovers that, would that cut against the tenant's right to stay and to win the case? There's a lot to unpack in that question, but generally, if you are a tenant, you have a right to be in your property, and there is a bad condition that's been identified, and you put your landlord on notice of it, and certainly if the Board of Health has ordered that they make that repair. In general, if the unit isn't condemned, I think the landlord needs to kind of do some extreme remediations where someone can't live there for the time being. they generally have to put up the person elsewhere, or compensate them in some way in order to be put up elsewhere. Again, it's case specific. It's a little bit different with condemnations or something that's damaged to, like a flood or fire or that sort of thing if the unit is totally destroyed. But where it's a persistent bad condition, the landlord says, hey, in order you gotta cut off the electricity, we gotta get it to the wall, something like that, then certainly they can't use that as an excuse to terminate someone's tenancy and throw them out. The tenant still has all the rights that they have otherwise. Landlord still has to go through the summary process, the eviction process, get an order, and remove them if they want to do it. So some might just choose to wait if it's kind of like a gut renovation sort of deal until someone moves out, which is maybe what this landlord is like planning, which is why the landlord wants everyone to go. But every single person in Massachusetts is entitled to a safe, habitable home with the bad conditions fixed without them having to move out in order to get that done. Yeah.
And isn't it, I'm pretty sure, but isn't it that if they find one problem or one violation, then they have to do the whole apartment?
So is the question, if they find one violation, then they have to?
They have to, inspect the entire apartment.
Then they have to inspect the entire apartment. So, not entirely familiar with how, quite frankly, how the Board of Health kind of does inspections, like internally, but generally, if you call for one issue, they're gonna look at the whole unit. Yeah, they're gonna look at just everything, probably the structure. I've seen lots of reports that look at the foundation of the building, just like as extensively as they inspect, kind of within their authority. Yeah, I would imagine that they're gonna look at everything, generate a report and a laundry list if there are bad conditions of everything that needs to be fixed. Yeah. Any other questions?
Do you have applications with you?
Do I what, sorry?
Do you have applications with you?
Like for legal services? I can give everyone the phone number. Everyone can write. I might just want to tell everyone now so that everyone can write it down. There's all the pencil on the table. Can get everyone our intake line, 781-254-1265. That's our general housing intake line. Again, no pressure on anyone, but we're available to answer questions generally, so that's there. Did I see a question over here?
Sean, I have one question with regards to when you were talking about disabilities
Yep.
and having that as a defense. How about children? Is there a specific age bracket, like if you've got a young child, with regards to any type of legal defense?
So, the only thing that I can, sorry, the question was, is there any sort of legal defense that comes from having young children? Off the top of my head, I can't think of anything other than that a landlord can't discriminate against someone on the basis of their family status, such as if they have children. So there's potentially a claim for discrimination if the landlord is targeting specifically like tenants who have young children, if they need to be led or something, and trying to evict only those tenants rather than just letting the building, that comes up sometimes. But in terms of claiming, some sort of defense based on having small children, I don't know if there's any direct claim for that, other than family status discrimination. Right here.
Okay. We all got a notice also that said we had to clean everything out of our yard so that they could send a company in to mow the lawn, which in our lease it states that we're responsible for our lawns. And they're saying that if it wasn't done by the 31st, that they were sending somebody in to remove all of our stuff from the yard. Those of us that have gotten notices, they can't legally touch that stuff, right? Because we're under the process of being evicted.
Right, so the question is, a lot of the tenants at Devenscrest have received notices. It seems that have demanded that you all remove personal property from I don't know, certain parts
from the yard.
From your yards, or from the common spaces or something like that. Okay, and so can the landlord then come and remove it themselves? That's the question, right?
Plants, they told us to get rid of plants, everything off the porch, nothing on the lawns, no chairs, nothing. And we've all been living like that regularly, and all of a sudden, we have really nowhere to put it. Our sheds are probably filled with seasonal stuff or whatever.
Yeah, so I don't know. That one question I really don't know the answer to, because I'd have to look at, if you have a lease, what the lease says. If you once had a lease and then now it's been spaced out for month to month, those lease terms would typically still kind of adhere. So I have to look at the specific terms of what's included, what you're allowed to do, what you're not allowed to do. In terms of them removing your personal property as a result, I don't know. Generally, I've seen landlords get court orders in order to do that, rather than just kind of risking it to just remove a bunch of people's stuff without the court's backing. Again, it's going to depend on what the terms of the tenancy are.
Sounds like it's just general harassment.
Exactly. Putting us in
We're all-
fear, like,
the
get your
leases
stuff
that
out
were
of here.
signed were tenant at will leases that specifically stated mow your own lawn, get your own snow removal, and so.
Yeah, we always were able to have like pots outside, you know, some of us grow like tomato plants or have, you know, different gardening things outside, so we're
Yeah, I
like.
have an entire vegetable garden out there that if they're gonna come in and take, it's not gonna be happy.
Yeah, I would not be happy either personally. They took all my vegetables.
Yeah, I mean.
So yeah, no. I think that it's gonna really depend on the specific terms of the tenancy, what your rights are as a tenant to have items in that space, and you have to look at that closely, or get someone to look at that closely. Certainly, if it gets to the point where the landlord comes in and forcibly removes your stuff, it would have to be looked at specifically like any other kind of. Another person coming in and taking your stuff, did they have the right to do it or not, is going to be that specific.
Their reasoning was because they have land surveyors coming in.
So the reasoning was they have land surveyors?
Yeah, in
Okay.
the letter, it had stated that, land surveyors were coming in to start doing whatever they're gonna do.
Lawn maintenance.
They don't even have a permit yet.
So I don't know all the facts and can't really advise on that, but I would look at the terms of if you sign a tenancy at will, what it allows you to do. If there's a reasonable reason for it, if it's temporary, I don't know about removing a whole garden, but if it's like moving some personal items, some tenants just say whatever. But if it's something permanent, then yeah, I don't know. Again, I don't know the specific rights or what they're even going to end up going through with or doing in this specific case. Was there a question?
Not yet.
Oh,
I'll come right back to you about that letter
Are you
that I received. I actually have a copy of it. I have to pull it back up. I lost it as I was raising my hands.
I have a question.
Yeah.
To get, legal services, what is your salary cap on a person?
So
Single person. Single person, because.
For free, right?
So, I don't know all the eligibility criteria off the top of my head. Intake unit is much better at that than I am. But I will say that given the, I'll say, our desire to help people at Devenscrest, I've heard that we're going to be providing, even if it's brief advice and services, to almost anyone who calls will be able to give some amount of advice to. In terms of taking on someone for a fuller rep, because our funding sources require us to only kind of represent individuals who are eligible.
Okay.
Like for a fuller representation, in order to get reimbursed as an organization, we can only do that for, income eligible people. I don't know all the specific criteria. It's generally up to 200% of the federal poverty line, which you could look up online. I think for one person, that's about $24,000 a year. It's quite low for qualifying, for a fuller rep. But that said, I would still strongly encourage anyone to always reach out and do an intake, because we are kind of making funds available to help the Devenscrest community, especially walking through maybe filing the right forms if the time comes, or advising people on their rights, or referring them out to pro bono counsel who are trying to get on board to help out as many people as possible. So getting in kind of to the intake is useful regardless, even if you can't get a permanent lawyer to help with the entire thing.
But say if it's an association that we're trying to develop.
Right.
Would you do that for
they
free?
take status on your income at that point.
So we do individual representations. I've never represented a whole organization. I think I'd be teamed with trying I'm hopeful at least that we'll be able to pitch to our organization, and they seem to take a lot of interest in this kind of what you're all going through right now. So I would pitch to them to hopefully get some sort of private practice or pro bono involved as well, to help negotiate that deal with someone really experienced, if it's a real estate deal or if it's a complex tenant matter. I mean, negotiating for hundreds of units is like, it's a big,
It's a lot.
yeah, it would be a lot. So when it comes individual, like case, if these all go to court, yeah, an individual would have to fit our eligibility criteria, or we have to kind of squeeze someone in, the funding, to get everyone represented, but like our goal is to get everyone represented who comes to us. So, was there a question over here? Yeah.
So,
okay, yeah.
Going back to the items in the yard that we were just speaking about, I have the letter right here. So the letter states, items included but not limited to, shoes, tools, toys, bikes, clothing, plants, storage items, picnic tables, basketball hoops, etc. Okay. Furthermore, it states that any items left in the outdoor common areas, including satellite dishes, after July 31st, 2021, will be disposed of without additional notice. Furthermore than that, any vehicle that is not registered, inspected, or operable will be removed from the property at the owner's expense. Without further notice.
Videotape everything in your yard and in your house.
So is there a specific question on that?
Well, the specific question was, do they have a legal right to do that?
I can't really advise on what exactly is happening in that particular circumstance.
Well, you had stated that, a second ago, I believe that you just stated that, without court order, that these items could not be removed without.
No, so I should clarify. I said that I've seen landlords often get a court order in order to remove personal property. But
That was my
I don't know in this particular circumstance, without looking at all the details, if that's what's required.
They can do it out of the common.
Yeah.
I just want to address what you just asked. I don't know, I haven't seen the leases.
I have a
but-
copy
Oh,
of
okay.
one here.
It depends on what's your common area. So, like, so for instance, if you were in a, can you not hear me? I'm sorry. I feel like I'm yelling. But if your backyard is essentially appurtenant to your rental, like if there's a designated space that's yours, they can't. If it is a common area that is general to the community and not owned by one individual but by the owner, then it's their land. So I think it depends on where the stuff is and how your lease is written. I don't purport to know the answer to this because I haven't seen the leases.
Right.
But I think the pivotal word was common areas. So
There aren't any.
But what would they
we
consider?
each have our own yard. You have your own yard, and it
Your
says
own
in your
yards,
lease
yeah.
that you have exclusive use and occupancy.
Yeah. In front of our windows. All the yard in front of our windows.
Okay, so they can't.
Yeah, and there are developments where there are common areas.
Right,
but-
like
Oh,
the
yeah, no,
swimming
we
pool
don't.
and the fitness center and all that stuff that we don't have.
What would we need to do to be considered an organization? Do we have to do something formally to be considered an organization as a group?
So the question is the question.
I go back there. Yeah.
Do we have to do something formally to be considered a group as Devenscrest, like other residents? Do they have to do something formally, like a document do they have to find? Do they have to create an organization formally, a nonprofit? Is there something that has to be done in that manner?
So I don't believe you need to create anything in terms of nonprofit, like filing with the state. I don't know off the top of my head. Tenants organizations are unfortunately not as common as you would hope. They might be given the circumstance that you're all in now. And so I'd have to look into what exactly needs to be done. I don't know if anyone here, sorry if I'm unfamiliar with the people who are here who might be from an organizing capacity, are more familiar, with tenants organizations, but I don't know the specific legal criteria for getting recognized.
There's no formal criteria. It's simply people have to agree to work together. And usually that involves, meeting together but there's no formal criteria for it.
So there is no formal criteria with the answer. Generally, the criteria would be people meeting together, perhaps recognizing themselves as some sort of concerted
So if we were able to collect all the information from everyone at Devenscrest, all the residents, and provide that to your legal group, would that be enough for you to pitch that to your superiors to try to allow you to then pro bono cover all these people?
So I'll be honest, my superiors are 100% on board with supporting the people of Devenscrest already. That's why I'm here. Yeah, we've been talking internally, like we're 100% on board. Again, our hands are tied in certain ways, like with giving every single person like an attorney to represent them through the whole process. Just because our funders put certain eligibility criteria on us, it's how we all get paid. But in terms of referring people out to pro bono counsel, if we can locate them, if they're income ineligible, then yeah, that's what we're trying to do. And in terms of trying to be present here and supportive through the whole process, if it doesn't end up being personal litigation, if it's this gap that's created between you all get the notice to quit and before it goes to court, which I've been kind of hearing, if there's any sort of opportunity there to negotiate a kind of collective agreement to kind of deal with everyone. Like, I'm here, I'm present, and we're going to try to get as much support as possible.
Thank you.
So in regards to the yard, is there a letter that we can give to them that not represents, but like on behalf of all of us? Please do not touch the things in our yard because the will states, that kind of thing, so that there's a response and there's a paper trail?
It's a good question.
I actually believe that question should be directed toward the
lawyer.
attorney for Brady Sullivan.
Yeah, that's a good question. There you go.
Hi, my name is Rob Anctil. We've never met. We've talked on the phone a lot. I am not just punting. I don't know the answer to that. Sheila Harrington is your state rep. She's also a real estate attorney. She provided the same answer that I would provide. I don't know what the leases state. As a matter of fact, I thought we were all tenants at will and that there wasn't an underlying lease.
Can you go to the mic, please?
Yeah, sure.
Thank you.
If you didn't hear me, I'll repeat it. I'm sorry if you didn't. Sheila Harrington, your state representative, provided an answer relative to the things that are at the property. I've driven around Devenscrest. The goal of Brady Sullivan is to clean up the properties in general. We do want to have a good relationship with our tenants.
What a way to start.
Let's start.
And I get where you're coming from. I'm here to provide you with a number and a contact. There's a piece of paper on everybody's table, and I think there are pens that RCAP provided. Your contact phone number for Tim will be 603-391-6371. Again, 603-391-6371. We also have set up a designated email, which is devenscrestvillage@comcast.net.
And Kim holds what position?
She's a tenant relocation manager. She will be your primary point of contact. The ownership entity does anticipate providing financial incentives for helping people to relocate.
That was my first question to you, is what would they be willing to do to help us relocate along, because some of us are not gonna qualify for recap.
For RCAP. I understand that.
Income wise, I mean, I work 2 jobs, I already know it, but 100% I'm still not gonna qualify for legal aid either. So, but when I moved here 6 months ago, Larry helped me out of basically the same situation that Brady Sullivan's putting me in again.
I'm sorry about that. As Sean can reiterate, we and Representative Harrington, for that matter, there have been a tremendous amount of awful things that have happened through coronavirus. One of the positive things is that, and Sean would say that this is the first time in his career that he's ever been in a position where if we didn't have non-payment, or the tenant hadn't paid their rent, there's funds available to make the landlord whole. That's a very, very, very strange position for Sean to be in. Most of the time he's scrapping and fighting to find funds. That's not an issue. Unfortunately, that's also not an issue here with the landlord. We're looking to relocate, but a lot of those funds that are available through a number of the alphabet soup programs that were mentioned earlier. And I understand that there are strict income limitations, but there's a tremendous amount of aid out there. It's intended to help people that are financially struggling because of COVID, and a lot of those funds are anticipated that they're not going to be spent. So I think there will be some flexibility. You have people here from the state and those organizations to talk about it. Sean can speak a heck of a lot better for it than I would. I represent pretty much exclusively landlords. So we are going to be doing things on an individual basis. One of the things that makes it very difficult as a landlord is that you're required to do certain things like send a notice to quit. You're required to file a lawsuit. You can't rely on a representation 100% to say that we're going to move out on such and such a date because we're not going to be in the queue, so to speak, with the court system. But we are here to talk to people. I think that Senator Eldridge, who was here earlier, can talk about my reputation in the area. I've worked a number of times with Sean. I've worked a number of times with a lot of people within legal aid, and I'm going to do my best to make sure that while protecting my client's interest, which is to substantially renovate Devenscrest, that we don't end up putting out anybody in a home. So
That's everybody. That's everybody. Right now, it's so hard to find an affordable place.
I'm completely aware of the housing crisis, and I would say that, it's applicable at every income level, and I understand what you're saying. I'm also saying that there's a lot of funding that's out there. That doesn't find you a place to live, but there is funding. And we are going to talk to people on an individual basis. We're going to
Some
work on
people
this
don't
problem
qualify
together.
for that because they make more than others.
And
I will not qualify under half these programs.
Do you know when Sean said something about 25,000? That's only for a family of one.
I'm a family of one.
I know.
Yeah, I'm a family of one.
But I think the important thing is still I would look into talking with him because.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
And to talk to state organizations about what's available for housing. In finding a house on your, finding an apartment on your own is more difficult than it will be if you go to an organization. And I don't know what their eligibility requirements are, but they might be able to find you an apartment listing that you were not otherwise know about. And if there are, I think increasingly so, there are a whole bunch of different income limitations and requirements for a ton of different programs. So just to say that you don't qualify for legal aid doesn't mean that you're not going to be able to qualify for some other housing project.
That is like 40 minutes. I work at the school systems. That would be my job too. That I could lose.
My mother's care provider is moving into a new place in Leominster, she said yesterday. She lives in Air, and there is some housing available. And I'm not going to pretend to say that I know where.
Is there an option for these tenants to buy out their properties?
From you?
No.
Oh, you see that?
Not at all? No, it's okay.
I mean, for the price that Brady Sullivan bought them for, why wouldn't they sell off their pieces right back to the community?
It's not our business, and I can't speak for them. I would say in general, my client buys properties, they hold them, they fix them up, and it's not in their practice to sell units. There is no condominium association for your property. It would violate zoning, I think, to separate the properties on an individual basis. I don't think that that's a realistic.
Zoning laws can be changed.
Yes.
It just, I really have a hard time hearing in general, so. Okay.
It's stressful enough that we have to move, okay? This is our homes that are being taken away from us. It's like, I've been there for years and years, and it's like my gut has been torn out. It's stressful that we have to move, and it's stressful for the families that have children. Those children are going to suffer. They're being torn out of their homes too. Not just that, it's not just children, but we have pets. What are we supposed to do with our animals? We supposed to just abandon them because this landlord wants to come in and take over? He is a greedy son of a gun as far as I'm concerned. He has not given us a chance to help ourselves. It's like, we want you out. We want this money, the mighty dollar. We have a hard time right now affording our rent. We live in apartments that have never been fixed, but we dealt with it. We paid our rent. We were good tenants. You have not even looked at that point. We are hard-working individuals. And I think what he is doing is damn disgusting. You want to take over these apartments, turn them into buildings that none of us could afford to reapply for. $72,000 frickin' dollars a year you expect us to pay? We are low-income people. You have taken our lives and turned them upside down. You have people with health issues. Did you look at that? No. You have people that are older. Did you look at that? No. You have young couples that are struggling to survive. Did you look at that? No. You're looking at the mighty dollar. And you know something? I don't care if you are his lawyer or not.
Here, here. Awesome job. Wow.
You are wrong. It's people like you that defend these assholes. And they get away with it. Do you know something? It takes a lot to get me angry. But right now I am thoroughly pissed because of what's happening. I look at all these people here. Everybody has a life. You're fortunate. You probably have a nice car, fancy home, good wife, kids, money up the ass. We don't. The little bit that we have, you have taken away from us. How dare you? How dare you? Do you know, this is funny. I have a cat. This may sound crazy, people, but I have a cat. He's my family. He's going to be 19 years old. I've looked all over trying to find one apartment. They don't want animals. What are we supposed to do? Surrender them to shelters? What are we supposed to do with the kids? Live in a shelter? Take their home away? No. You need to think about your profession, what you're doing, and who you're helping. Stop and think. You know, you've got to have something up here. You've got to have some type of a heart. Do you? I don't think so because you're standing there helping this person. No.
Wow. That was amazing. Great job.
Any other questions?
No statement to that, sir?
I have a question, but it's more like for state reps, RCAP, yourself. So we're gonna say we stay fighting. We're gonna fight 6 months for a year. Awesome, great. And then we'd be out in a year. I have a family of 5 with 1 income. Thanks to COVID, over 100 million people lost their jobs. My boyfriend being one. Great job, ran a restaurant, went under. Shit happens, we all know. So now you make my family of 5. I have kids in the district now. Gonna be in 8th grade, been here 10 years in the district. Rip them out, my twins rip them out, go live in Vicksburg where I can afford, because that's all I can make money for, into a city that may or may not be suitable for my family. I have a child who plays sports since he was 3 in the area. I'll leave your team, screw it, we're moving to Boston, it's all I can afford. Like, this whole fight 6 months, fight 1 year, I can't.
It's all about community. It's not just about moving
I
wherever
get
you can.
you guys make money, can't take that from you. What I do for a job is totally what I do for a job. I totally get it. But what you're doing to us
We're not people to you. You see half a dollar sign, maybe bowling with some people. But I can't make that. Even both of us working back to full-time jobs. I don't even back full-time yet. We don't make your $72,000 a year. Not even close. We're a one-car family. So we have to work the area we live in. We have to live near where our kids go to school. They have to get out of school to pick them up from school. They can't afford daycare or babysitters. But hey, shrug your shoulders. I get it. I get it. You do your job. Totally understand. Not mad at you, but it's everything. You're just, not you, sorry. They are screwing us over. Well, we fight for a year. Some of us may be lucky enough to buy a house, find somewhere else to move, don't have as many ties to the community. I've been here my whole life, not in Devenscrest, but Air Shirley region, where a regionalized kind of almost town. You're gonna rip me from my town? And I lived here since I was 10? 10. You never guessed. I'm only 36. So you're gonna rip my ass out of here. See ya, bye. Don't care. Here's some money to help you move. Thank you. Don't need it, but thank you.
Can I talk a little bit? Because I'm from the town, I'm Alicia Hersey, I'm in community development.
Yeah. There you go, Lisa. Bring the
I'm
mask.
from the town, I'm
There you go.
Alicia Hersey, I work in the community development department, and we work on housing. I know this is not coordinating in your own time properly, but if we are working with a nonprofit developer to bring in about 125 units. It's probably going to be 3 years.
3 to 4 years?
3 years.
Okay, 3 years.
And then we'll have to qualify, we might not even qualify for it.
It will be 30, 50, and 80% AMI, which means 30's low, extremely low income, 50% is low income, and 80% is moderate income. I just want people to know, whatever the fight is, come in and talk to us. We do have other units, we can direct you, they're not available right now. I understand that it's a very serious housing crisis right now.
3 years though, wait for 3 years, you fight for 3 years, you get in. But I'm not the only family applying, there's 122 in other counties. Oh shit, what you said 3 communities have to agree to step in, so
No,
there's
this is
3
not
towns.
that. This is a different project that's at the state right
But is
now.
it dedicated just for Devenscrest or air residents,
No.
or is it,
It is an air project, it will be in air.
do we get first dibs as air residents?
It's, you're legally not allowed to do that in the state. You cannot just qualify air residents. As soon as somebody moves into air, they're an air resident.
I understand that.
So, and the state law does not allow you to single out. They'll allow you sometimes to single out a few units just to air residents.
How do they get away with it in the housing authorities then? They only let the town.
They are allowed
from
to
the
do
town.
it for a certain number of units.
Yeah. No, not really.
It's a certain number of units. You
For a
guys have
certain
to-
number of units. So when we built the Habitat for Humanity, and we got it as low income, so it was made, a LIP unit, a local, well, it was actually made a local action unit now. And we wanted to make that both units, there was 2 units there, we wanted to make them for air residents. We were able to just do 50%, so we were able to make them open to one just for air residents. As it worked out, we didn't have enough air residents sign up, so they were both
I think you
residents
could
were
go
not
up to
air.
50% of local preference.
Yes?
I'm sorry, I just wanted to say one thing just relative to the not being exclusive. And part of that is, I can tell you, when I get approached by somebody who's facing homelessness and they need a place to live, and RCAP does this very well, they don't just search one community. Now, the hard part of it is, I happen to think you live in a very nice community. And the hard part of it is that a lot of the openings may not be in a community that is close to here or is a community you would have purposefully chose to live in for a variety of reasons, okay? So there's actually some protection into it that it gives us the ability to, if air doesn't have it, we'll look at every other town and see if we can find something somewhere. The difficulty with it is sometimes we do find somebody something, I've been working actually with a particular woman in Air, and the options to her were in Worcester and I want to say Lynn and Lowell. And she didn't want to live in any of the areas. She's not a young woman, and there's, she feels that they were areas that had a lot of drug issues and things like that, and I respect that. But that's the hardest part for us. The lucky part is we get to look at the whole picture. The bad part is we may not be able to offer you anything that is in your own community. And I think what you're talking about, the new work that the town is doing, is I agree. We're behind the 8 ball. We should have been doing this 10 years ago, if you want my opinion.
No, 30 years ago.
Well, actually, to be honest with you, Air voted it down. When it came up 10 years ago, Air voted Vicksburg Square down. I believe Harvard and Air, I think, voted it down. Shirley voted for it. But we are so behind in housing production that the pickings are so slim, and we have nowhere else to go. Those are what's out there. So it protects you in the way that you're not locked into just living in Air, but it hurts you in the way that you may have to go to a community that you don't want to go to. So I don't know. I just wanted to.
Can I do a question for Attorney Anctil? If he's going to negotiate a longer time to stay and talk about what they need for staying?
Sorry, I have a very hard time hearing anybody.
Okay, go into the mic.
So if people need to negotiate, would they be talking to Kim for longer stay periods and things like that?
The question was, I think everybody may have heard that, if you're looking for any particular situations, yes, Kim would be your primary person of contact.
And did you suggest that Brady Sullivan was going to give incentives themselves, or are they talking about state money?
No. Brady Sullivan would be providing their own independent financial incentives.
And they would talk to Kim about that too?
Correct.
Everybody needs to decide whether they want to work with them with a group, as a group, and they do need to get their own legal aid, and so please make sure you reach out so you can have someone talk about your rights to you, so you have your own attorney. But I just wanted to clarify that. Okay.
Do you mind if I talk?
Nada.
We're talking about.
I can't hear.
Sorry.
Since I filed for my divorce in 2000, I probably have moved about 8 times. Homeless twice, my own father-in-law, through the corrupt judge in Lawrence, had my son and I thrown out in the street, and we lived in a tent at Salisbury Beach for 2 weeks. I could never find housing anywhere that was affordable. I've moved about 7 or 10 times. Does anybody realize how it affects your mental health and your stability? And always worried about being thrown out, and when is the next shoe gonna drop? And when are they gonna raise the rent? And when am I gonna get some kind of notice to quit? It has really done a job on me. I am so burnt out from everything that has happened. I'm shutting down. I even shut down to the point that I couldn't even call Beth when we, were supposed to send money and all of that. I just completely shut down, and I couldn't even call her. I just want you to know that's really doing a number on my mind, my spirit, my life. I don't know what to do anymore. I'm tired of moving.
Thank you for your comments. I am empathetic.
Jesus.
I am. I became an attorney because I want to help people.
We're
gonna work on this.
Helping the wrong people.
It's the owners that you're saying that.
I don't have
Yes, Attorney Anctil. I know you mentioned that you weren't willing to sell single units to people that might want to buy their own units. Could you ask your client if he'd be willing to sell the whole project, and if so, for how much? Just ask so we know what the number is.
I will. I will ask that question. As far as communicating that back to the group, I'll communicate through shot.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Another thing that you could ask your client is if they are not interested in selling the entire development to a different developer or to the tenants as a group, would your clients be interested, even though I know this is not the business that they're in redeveloping Devenscrest as mixed income housing? There is a ton of state money available to develop affordable housing. There's $1 billion that has come to the state.
$3 billion, I think, isn't it?
Well, just for the housing, out of the COVID relief, there are lots and lots of technical people that could advise and work with your clients in terms of how to access this kind of stuff. It would, I think, probably be preferable to sell the development to an experienced affordable housing developer, but there is that option.
But I guess that, from my perspective, I don't know how that changes our situation here today, because the apartment units are in dire need of repair.
Understand.
So,
Understood.
even if we were to create, and I do a lot of real estate development work, I don't know how one creates, takes an existing project and make it into a 40B.
Not a 40B, a low-income housing tax credit project. I'm not talking about 40B.
I guess maybe that would we would be capable of doing that. There would be some federal oversight of that, or state oversight.
The state, major state
Can you
oversight.
hear me out for 1 second? We still, one of our problems with this project is I'm told the heating bills are outrageous for some of the units. While the rental rates on a monthly basis are low, the heating bills in the middle of the winter are exceedingly high because they need insulation, they need some dramatic changes to our buildings. So I think that if we were going to change that over to an affordable project, we still need to do our repairs.
But you don't have to
Still
do
evicting
everything.
people, and we're still.
No, I wouldn't say you're evicting, you would have to relocate people.
We're relocating people.
Oh, yeah.
And what we're doing here is we're saying you can come back to our property. I have totally heard the comment.
Well, all right, so the difference is that if you developed it with all of the state funding that our reps can help access, then people would be able to come back at rents that they can afford because of the whole financing. Anyway, it's something that I would suggest that you present to your clients as an option.
I'm gonna go along with what he was saying, is that you renovated a couple of buildings at a time. And they've all been here for this whole entire time. And renovating a couple of units at a time, and then they can move in, you're not gonna displace everybody. Do 2 buildings at a time, 3 buildings at a time. I mean, right now they're knocking 37 buildings out.
Out of 120.
Yeah.
So we are planning on doing.
1/3. More than 1/3.
Yeah, but if they made it affordable, it would be just enough to do a couple of buildings at a time, and everybody could still stay in their homes and move into the new updated version.
Hi, Attorney Anctil. We met before the meeting. I'm a writer for the Lowell Sun, and I guess my question is, I understand the need to renovate the property, but why then, as a representative for the landlord, maybe you can address this, why then rehabilitate it and then charge an exceedingly high rate of $1,800 to $2,100 a month, effectively pricing everybody in this room out of those properties?
Mm-hmm.
And you have qualified, get back to it.
Yeah.
You said that we are effectively, if you ask your question again, I'm not trying to give you a hard time.
Well, I'm asking, I understand you need to rehabilitate these properties. It sounds like there's legitimate concerns with them. I think people in this room tend to, see where you're coming from with that.
Yeah.
But why then rehabilitate these homes and charge an exceedingly high rate of rent for those properties, pricing the people who currently live there out of those homes?
Yeah.
Why not make it a more modest step up? You're putting extremely unfeasible, from what I'm hearing here, just unfeasible requirements for people who need these homes.
To answer your question, honestly, Brady Sullivan has not redone their rental rates yet. We don't know what the rates are going to be when the properties are.
They told us, no, they told us 1800s. They told, Beth told me, when I first talked to her, want me to go to the microphone?
Thank you, Denise.
When I called Beth immediately after I got the intent to evict, she said, we randomly picked apartments, which is not true. It was a whole side of the street, all odd numbers. And she said, oh, but we have rehabilitated apartments. And I said, well, how much are they? And she said, $1,800. And I said, what's the income qualification? And she said $72,000. And I said, forget it. But then I called back a day or two and I left her a message and I said, hi Beth, can you please send me an application? I changed my mind. And can you put in writing how much you said the apartment was going to be? And then she called me back and she said, oh, we're not doing applications right now.
Okay. That's news to me. My client said that they hadn't fixed their rental rates. I don't know if they were talking about a particular apartment.
They're not being honest with you right
for
away.
a 2-bedroom and $84,000 for a 3-bedroom.
Yeah.
My question is off that subject. I'm just curious, how'd you guys decide what units to pick?
I wasn't part of that decision-making process.
36.
Just take it all down, one street at a time.
I was assuming it's because the street that is from my house down is mostly 3 bedrooms. Is it because they're bigger homes and you can get more money faster before you get the other people out? Like, when are you gonna get the other people out? Like, when are they gonna get their notices? I already got my notice, so I know I gotta be out in 60 days. But when are the people that are still living there gonna get their notice? They're sitting there like sitting ducks, not knowing what's gonna happen.
Yeah.
I think they really want to
Some of them don't even know.
what's gonna happen to them so that they can plan better, whether they wanna fight it or whether they wanna get out before. So
Yeah.
do you have an answer for?
I don't.
Okay.
Thank you.
Are you implying that there is no plan to get the other people out? That's my
No, my answer was, I don't know that plan.
It's coming eventually.
The plan is to redo the entire project.
I have a question about that. When you say redo the entire project,
We're gonna make substantial renovations to the entire project, the entire development.
renovations meaning to repair what's pre-existing there, or you're gonna tear
We don't have
structures
any-
down?
I don't have knowledge of that. What I do have knowledge of is that we are going to do things that are necessary repairs, such as fixing foundations that have trees growing through that, repairing windows that leak, insulating structures that are not properly insulated, fixing.
None of them are really. But just to let you know, when I was living in one apartment, and through fuel assistance, they do like insulating properties, and I never had to move out. They did all kinds of electrical work. I never had to move out. And a lot of our units, they might need work, but they're not they're not like to the extreme that we can't live there while they do any renovation. They shake them down to the studs.
Even with all your renovations, all the pre-existing housing that people privately own, wouldn't that be an eyesore for you? Wouldn't that bring your investment to a lower value?
I don't understand your question.
That was a question that just came in from someone that lives in Devenscrest that couldn't be at the meeting tonight because she's at home with her kids.
Okay, but I'm really sorry.
The question came from
okay,
a person.
No, just honestly, I have a very hard time hearing.
Okay.
So,
To re-ask my question, okay? There are several privately owned homes that are not remodeled, that are kind of an eyesore to the neighborhood, as well as the current Devenscrest. You're going to remodel Devenscrest. How are all these privately owned homes that are eyesores going to affect your property value at that point?
That's.
Probably gonna try to buy them out. They probably will.
I have no idea how to answer the question.
Cash prices.
Rob, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
And I'm sorry to put you on the spot. I know that there's a lot of questions going at you.
I'll get
but
you back.
For the sake of legal aid, right? You can imagine what questions are going to be coming up.
And
so,
I just, I have multiple calls into legal aid to try to talk to you guys prior to this meeting, and I didn't hear back from you. So I have tried to reach out to Stephanie and Nicolo and a number of others.
Oh, okay.
I do. If I knew you were going to be here, I would have called you.
Yeah.
And have a discussion.
Okay. So, as I understand it, a lot of the people in this room and a lot of the people in Devenscrest have received notices to quit. Is the landlord's intention to file those?
We gave them a 75-day notice to quit.
75? 60.
60. It was.
For July was paid.
Yeah, it's 60
It was.
days.
It was 60.
As of the first of 60 days.
Yeah.
The notice was sent out in the middle of the
Oh,
month,
so the
John,
extra days
and
in
it
July.
is September 30th.
Okay.
Move out.
Yep. So after
But
September 30th.
I'll answer your question.
Yep.
Sorry, I didn't mean.
Please, guys, let them answer.
Oh, do we intend? You just want me to answer? Do we intend to file?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. So we can anticipate litigation for all those who are not out.
With 36 residents.
Well, we want to handle things on an individualized basis, which is not me fighting against any kind of a organized tenant union or whatever we had discussed. I didn't see that as an option. There are going to be individualized situations which we will talk to people about. I guess to answer your question, we do intend to talk to everybody about their individualized situations. And there are 37 notices that were sent out. We hope we have 37 separate discussions. Whether we have those discussions through you or through them individually, we hope to have 37 separate discussions. And if there's progress that are being made with relocating and finding a place, then there is not a need to file, or if there's special circumstances that are involved with somebody with multiple kids or an older person or whatever that situation may be, we're not opposed to having those discussions. I think one of the problems with the way that where we are two things. That the legal process requires us to send a notice to quit. There is no way around that. There are some residents that are upset that we did not have doors to communicate with people. One of our problems in purchasing this property is that we don't have good contact information for the residents. We have Unit 101 or whatever it is, and we didn't have solid names, so it was hard for us to be where we were.
Yeah. All you have to do is put notices in our mailbox. And you got the notices to quit there.
We send notices to quit to addresses. Hopefully we send them to the people, tenant ledgers that we had. Your prior landlord, Mr. Taji, did not do a good job in maintaining his record.
Did he know? Did he know your intention with the property?
Can I answer Sean's questions?
Apologize. Yeah.
So 1 second, I'll add your question.
I apologize, Sean. I didn't mean to.
So the next question would be,
just for the sake of everyone here who's, you know, you've heard a lot of questions about the conditions in the units. I'm sure your client is aware that they purchased it as an investment, right? Some of the conditions that they took with, and I would just say, you can answer this. Your client's aware of some of these bad conditions, right? When they take, and therefore you said the need for renovations. If there are substandard conditions in the apartments while these folks still live in them, or while any tenant in the state lives in them, there's an obligation to repair them while they're still tenants.
And we are following up and doing that, Sean. And we are planning on working. What we didn't do is we didn't send out a notice to every tenant. It certainly feels that way in your question that you asked, what's going to happen with the other tenants. Our intent is to repair the entire project, but we want to do this in a civil, organized, cooperative manner the best as we can.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I can appreciate that we have new landlords and their things have to be completed and developments or whatever. What I don't appreciate is receiving that notice to get everything out of it, get this, that. So the thing is, here it is summer. We just got out of a pandemic. None of us, we've been like in the house for like almost a year. And then we're trying to like have a nice summer. I'm sick to my stomach thinking about like somebody coming to my yard and removing everything. Like, I think that was unnecessary. What they should have done to me is they should have been reasonable about it and waited until at least September. Or, you know, like, I mean, tell it, we can clean up, I understand that. But flower pots, I mean, we all have flower pots and chairs and things like that. I mean, they're new, they're taking it over. They can't expect us to just, oh my God, we have nowhere to put our stuff, that's the whole thing.
Right.
Okay, thank you for your comments.
Yeah, I had a question. Well, I'd like to say, yeah, sure. Yeah.
First, I'd like to say that there's at least one person I'm aware of that probably wouldn't understand your notice if it came to the house. There's some people that probably are disabled that can't fully understand all of the things that are being said to them or that the document that they're reading. And so I'd say that may be difficult to try to get in contact with them just via sending a letter. My question I wanted to ask was is that did the previous landowner that sold the property, was he aware of what was going to happen to the property once it was purchased?
No, he was.
He probably didn't know.
I wasn't a part of those discussions, so
He said that he was shocked. He said he thought that. He said that he assumed that the new landlords were going to raise the rent a little bit.
His daughter lives with
But
them.
he said that
His daughter lives on
when I
my
told
street,
him what
yeah.
they told me about the $1,800, he said they did not tell me they were going to do that, and he was very surprised.
They don't have to tell.
Well, I know they don't have to, but he just, I knew it was going to happen.
So I have the letter here that you guys sent out when you guys bought the property, and it clearly states that you guys bought all of our tenancy at wills. In my tenancy at will, it says we have to maintain our yard and everything else. You gave a 2-week notice, but for the yards by the 31st of this month. So it's 2 weeks. Don't we need a month? Isn't that part of the tenancy at will? You have to give us a month notice for things?
Yeah, give me a question that you addressed to Sean. I honestly, hold on. Just let me finish it. You can certainly do that. I don't have a copy of your tenancy at will.
They're all the same. They're all the same.
Just let me, hear me out for 1 second. I have acknowledged your concerns relative to this stuff. I think that in driving around Devenscrest, there is stuff that needs to be cleaned up. There's some stuff that may not need to be cleaned up. And what it would be great is if you have your individual concerns go through Kim, which I provided her, our special email that we created for this, and a phone number. And create a written record that says, look, I requested that X, Y, and Z be left in my yard. And as I said, relative to each one of the individual evictions, we are going to end up doing these things on an individualized basis.
I understand that.
Come back to us. Your question is that you're obsessed with the notice?
No, I'm not upset with it at all. I just thought by law, because you guys purchased our tenancy at will, you have to legally give us 30-day notice to change it, correct?
Generally, I haven't seen the tenancy application.
Just in general.
In general, I mean,
Reasonable.
certainly in order to
Reasonable.
alter the terms of a tenancy at will, a month-to-month tenancy, you would have to give 30 days.
Thank you. That's all I wanted to know.
Okay, that's a generalized question. I don't know if your individualized leases include those areas, and I don't know. that.
It does.
That's fine, I'm just telling you, I don't know.
I'm also telling you, I don't know, but we can talk if you come to legal services.
Trucks, a lot of us don't have trucks. We're not able to throw things at the dump. It costs $100 to go there. How about the help with that?
I just stated, address your individual issues through him. We provided a phone number and an email address to address your individualized issues.
Some of this with me.
It's not just one.
What that lady who spoke there.
Why do you deal with us as a group?
Where's
With Kim? There's Brady Sullivan.
Yeah, where is she?
Hiding out.
Well, we have a phone number, we can call her anytime. This is all you do. This is all you do. Can't hear you.
I'm sorry that I have a hearing disability, okay, ma'am?
Well, then
I'm
get a
doing my
hearing
best.
aid.
Thank you for your comment.
Okay. This isn't helping. So if people have real questions they want to ask, I don't think it helps to beat each other up. I think that we're trying to come to a solution and give people real options. Does anyone have any more questions for Recap Solutions? Thank you, Lindsay, for coming. For Sean? Lindsay, does anyone have?
I just think that we should have a strategy. It's not just a.
Wait, can I just say something? I think that we should have a strategy and not just about financial stuff, but there are things like the yard things. We need a strategy about maybe a truck coming like a couple of times a week to help us get stuff out of our yard. Because we have things that we can't.
Create an organization, a tenant organization. That's what you guys have been
Well,
talking
maybe
about.
they can help us out since they're dumping us out. Maybe they can.
Well,
Maybe the
but then
tenants
you
can
need
help.
to-
I mean, the landlord can help us.
Then give him a call.
So it should be a strategy about that.
You need to ask these things.
Yeah, but we need to do it. Like they don't get back to us, and it's hard to get through to them too.
Okay.
That's true.
Has anyone, how many people have called to Brady Sullivan?
I did yesterday, and Kim called me right back.
Okay.
I actually called back and she did call me back as well.
Okay, so that's.
Way
a
back,
step.
like, what, the 15th, 16th?
I think you have to be clear on your questions, and if you want to organize, that is your right. And if you want to organize, but I don't think, this is kind of descending into, let's beat up the gentleman from Brady Sullivan.
He's the attorney.
And he doesn't,
He's
you
doing
know,
his
they
job.
sent him here to do his job, but he wasn't in the negotiation, he hasn't seen your leases yet. So clearly, he'll go back and tell them that. He will go back and tell them that, trust me. So, but you need to know what you want to ask them, and you need to know what you want to do as an organization or as a community, or whether you want to do this as individuals. So evaluate what you've taken here tonight. Call if you have questions. Everybody's willing to talk to you. Okay? Yes.
From the back, I was just informed that somebody called Kim yesterday, and she got right back to them.
I just want to add, for my observations here, I think if you guys get together and fight it off legally, hopefully as a group, I don't know if that's possible, but if it is, it'd be great, because if you stand together, you get more power. Now what I see is also perhaps the owners trying to, in a way, give some of your money for you guys to leave, so they really have higher chances here of winning. So I think if you guys work together, you might be able to delay, and who knows what could be done. I'm not an attorney. I can give legal, not big advice, but practical advice. I think just pay your rent that you were paying before and document your apartment. I think that's the Eldridge. I mentioned that last time we met. I think that's so important. But if legal aid can set up a meeting, meet with the group, I think it facilitates a lot of things. So I think I can ask strongly for that.
I just want to go ahead and tell everybody, Rick, if I can say, if you want to, because I know that you've been helping coordinate everything here. Excuse me. You've been helping to coordinate everything here. If people want to get together, I know that we can stay around for maybe about another 15 minutes afterwards. So that if there's something that you want to coordinate of getting things, like I say, from moving, getting vans or whatever. And then I know, Rick, you'll be able to go ahead and publish other stuff. I think that would work out good. And you can also ask the facilities here if you can do another type of meeting to come together as a group.
You guys have to band together. That is your number one resource. The best thing that you guys do is band together as a group. Your strength is in your numbers.
We should have a meeting set before.
Okay? Okay, sounds great. Again, thank you very much.
Everybody, I passed some of those. If you have them, please return them so we could be in touch with you. It's a petition, like a sign-in sheet.
Good. Rob Vogel. Oh, I saw you on the City Light meeting. Yep.
I just know